coal is the most abundant fossil fuel that we have here in the United States. And as a fossil fuel, it produces the most carbon dioxide of any fossil fuel when you burn it. Coal burning power is the largest CO2 emission in the United States. We've been concerned about coal burning power plants because of the global warming effects of this huge greenhouse gas emission.
Emissions from coal-fired power plants are currently about a third, or 30%, of total greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. So it's a very important part of the overall inventory of air pollution. Depending on your view of the future, we are either going to vastly increase that coal use, or we will shrink it. The vision of a vastly increased coal use in the United States would be tragic.
In the 80s and 90s, the country didn't build new coal-burning power plants. In the 80s and 1980s and 1990s, the country was really moving towards investing in clean, renewable energy sources, energy efficiency and wind power and solar power, and really beginning to make major investments in those areas. The Cheney Energy Plan proposed to take the country in exactly the opposite direction, going back to investment in coal and really promoting the construction of a large number of new coal-burning power plants and abandoning any major investments in clean, renewable energy sources. The scale of what they proposed is really breathtaking. Over 150 new coal-burning power plants in the United States threatens to dramatically increase the amount of carbon dioxide that the United States is putting out at the same time the rest of the world is looking to cut emissions.
This would be catastrophic in terms of public health and also climate stability.
If we don't develop renewable clean energy, the environment's going to get worse, global warming's going to get worse. There's going to be international ramifications for those countries that are affected most. There's going to be environmental refugees, instability around the world that we're going to be pulled into. That we all have a stake in getting creative now and getting behind the innovations that are being proposed and that are really possible.
Once you build a coal plant, it's around for 50 years. There are no scrubbers that you can put on these coal plants to address the problem of global warming. So it is critical, if we're going to solve the problem of global warming, that these coal plants not get constructed. The 7 Northeast states that got together to propose to cut their emissions by about 24 million tons from all of their power plants, 2 of the proposed coal plants in the Midwest would put out 24 million tons. So the scale of how this will accelerate global warming and undermine the efforts what other states and other countries are doing is again the reason why we've identified coal plants as the #1 priority.
An energy policy based on clean coal technology is bogus. And the reason is because clean coal technology only addresses the burning end of the coal cycle. The extraction end is dirty and dangerous. And clean coal technology removes a lot of pollutants, metals mostly, that would otherwise go into the atmosphere, but it does not remove CO2.
The coal industry is hell-bent on trying to persuade the American people, despite the facts, that coal somehow has a future and doesn't cause air pollution.
Clean coal, we can do it cleaner, but you can't get rid of the carbon dioxide.
They've engaged in what I would call deceptive practices.
They're going to great lengths. They're spending record amount of money, and we expect that amount to increase even more in the years ahead as Congress finally gets down to the job of actually doing something about global warming. Because the first place you go when you want to solve the problem of global warming is to reduce the amount of coal being burnt. It's the cheapest, quickest, and most effective way to cut global warming pollution. Substitute coal with one of the myriad of other alternatives we have available, beginning particularly with renewable energy and energy efficiency, which can meet the bulk of our energy needs without any of the human health consequences associated with coal burning.
This will drive new technologies by not saying, let's build lots of coal burning power plants. We have 250 years worth of coal here in the United States, but it's not worth it for our health and for our economy.
In parts of the United States, places like the heartland, the breadbasket, if you will, for the United States, climate change threatens to dramatically cut the amount of water, and that could have enormous consequences for our ability to provide enough food for the American people. It is in our human interest to act quickly, but it's also in our economic interest to act as fast as we possibly can to cut carbon emissions.
The Kyoto Protocol in the last 6 to 8 years has reduced CO2 worldwide from the countries who have signed on. And the United States, by building only 50 new coal-burning power plants, which we have plans to do 150, only 50 would wipe out all the positive effect from the Kyoto Protocol.
The next 2 to 3 years are probably the most important critical months we have to solve the problem of global warming. Scientists are now more shrill than ever, saying we have delayed far too long. If we don't get it right now, it will be practically impossible for us or our next generation to actually solve the problem of global warming.
To love this country means making sure that, our children and our grandchildren have a future that is a livable future. I mean, if we continue down the road that we're going now, we're not only going to ruin the lives and environment and communities and culture of people in coalfield states, we're going to eventually erode the possibility for our kids to have a life in which they can breathe easy without fear of the enormous problems that may come from global warming.
Our children then ask us one of two questions. They're going to say, why didn't we fix this problem when the scientists are telling us we have to solve the problem of global warming because it threatens to undermine the very atmosphere that we rely on? Or they will say, how did we find the courage to actually fix this problem? We can really turn this country around and become a leader on solving the problem of global warming, and not right now the last remaining outlaw who's yet to sign the Kyoto Protocol.